It was supposed to be a normal day, but it turned into a nightmare. Inside a black expensive Jeep, a young, handsome billionaire named Richard was driving alone. He just left an important business meeting and was heading to his private mansion. He wore a white shirt, a gold wristwatch, and a tired look on his face. He didn't know that danger was waiting ahead. As he got to a high bridge, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. It was his personal assistant. He picked the call. "Yes, James, what is it?" But before James could answer, a trailer with failed brakes came from the corner, speeding. The loud sound of horns filled the air. Richard looked up. It was too late. Bam! The trailer hit the back of his car. The Jeep lost balance, broke through the side of the bridge, and fell into the river below, with a loud splash. The water swallowed everything. Silence returned. Nobody saw him fall. Nobody knew that the young billionaire the whole country was talking about had just disappeared. Far away in a quiet village, an old but strong fisherman named Mr. Tony was out on the river to fish. He had traveled from his city to this remote place to get better fish for his customers. But something strange caught his eye. A man's body, floating near the edge of the river. His heart jumped. "Jesus!" he shouted, paddling fast toward the body. He pulled the man onto his canoe and checked for signs of life. The man was still breathing, but just a little. His head had a deep cut. Blood had dried on one side of his face. Mr. Tony didn't wait. He rowed as fast as he could, got to the land, and carried the man into his old van. He drove straight to a small hospital at the edge of his town, shouting at the nurses, "Please save him. He's still alive." Doctors worked for hours. They gave him oxygen, cleaned his wounds, stitched the cut on his head. After 2 long days, the man finally opened his eyes. He looked around, confused. The nurse smiled. "You are safe now. You were in an accident. Do you know your name?" He blinked, looked at her, then whispered, I don't know." The nurse paused. "What about your family? Where are you from?" The man slowly shook his head. "I can't remember anything." She called the doctor immediately. The doctor came in and examined him again. After some time, he walked outside to Mr. Tony and said something that made the old man hold his chest. "He's alive. But he has lost his memory. He doesn't even know who he is." They called him the Mystery Man. He was handsome, well-dressed. Everything about him looked expensive, even though his clothes were torn from the accident. But no ID. No phone. No name. Nobody from the village knew him. So Mr. Tony took responsibility. He started bringing food, clothes, even soap for him to bathe. The villagers began to whisper, "Who is this man? Where did Mr. Tony find him? Maybe he is a criminal." But Mr. Tony always replied with a kind voice, "He's not a bad man. I saw goodness in his eyes." Back in the city, people began to notice something strange. Richard was missing. News spread. Social media was full of stories. Where is Richard Adams, the CEO of Adams Group? His workers were confused. His family was worried. But his cousin Maxwell, who had always been jealous of him, was already smiling. "If he doesn't return in 1 month," Maxwell said to Richard's lawyer, "then I will take over his companies. As his next of kin, it is my right." He had no idea. Richard was alive, just with no memory. Back in the hospital, the mystery man sat by the window every day, watching birds fly and people walk by. Sometimes, He held his head in pain. Sometimes, tears ran from his eyes without knowing why. One evening, as Mr. Tony was telling him a story about his fishing days, the man asked, "Sir, why did you save me?" Mr. Tony smiled gently. "Because you were not meant to die in that river. You still have a story to finish. And maybe I'm part of that story." The man nodded slowly. He didn't know who he was, but something deep inside him whispered, "You are not ordinary." Back in the city, the news spread like fire. Breaking news: black jeep falls into river from city bridge, driver missing. Reporters gathered at the scene. Police divers searched the river. A crane pulled out the damaged car, smashed beyond repair, but no body was found inside. It didn't take long before someone shouted, "That's Richard Ademola's car." People gasped. "Isn't that the billionaire's car? Oh my God, is Richard dead?" At the Ademola mansion, the atmosphere was heavy. Mr. Ademola, a respected businessman with grey hair and tired eyes, stood in silence as he watched the news. His lips were pressed tightly together. Beside him, Mrs. Ademola collapsed to the floor, screaming, "No! No! Not my son! Not Richard!" Maids rushed to hold her. The family doctor was called immediately, but nothing could calm the pain in her chest. Later that night, she entered Richard's room. She touched his bed, his clothes, his photo on the wall. Then she fell on her knees beside the bed and cried loudly like a baby. "God, please don't take my son away from me. He is all I have. Richard, wherever you are, please come back to me." Her sobs echoed through the quiet house. She refused to believe he was dead. She kept saying, "If he died, we would have found his body. But we didn't. My son is still alive. I feel it in my spirit." Mr. Ademola, though heartbroken, tried to stay strong. He organized a search party, paid divers, sent out flyers, offered a huge reward to anyone who found Richard or knew what happened to him. But day after day, nothing came. People began to whisper, "Maybe he's gone. Even rich people die like everybody else. Let the family move on." But Mrs. Ademola refused. She didn't eat much. She didn't laugh. Every morning, she placed Richard's favorite cup of tea beside his empty chair. Every night, she sat by his room window, waiting, hoping. Because deep down in her heart, a quiet voice kept telling her, "Richard is not dead." And somewhere far away, in a small village hospital, a son, alive, but lost, sat on a wooden bench with no idea that a mother was praying for him to come home. Far away from the city. After a few weeks in the hospital, the doctor finally said, "He's strong now. He can leave." Mr. Tony nodded and turned to the young man with a soft smile. "You can't stay here forever. Come with me. My home is small, but you'll be safe." The man, still without a name, still without a memory, nodded slowly. "Thank you, sir." So, Mr. Tony took him home. Their house was a small wooden building, sitting quietly near the riverbank. Chickens moved around the front yard. Clothes danced on the line. It was far from luxury, but filled with peace. As they walked in, Mr. Tony called out, "Amaka! Amanda! Come out. We have a guest." His wife, Mrs. Amaka Tony, stepped out, holding a bowl of water. Her eyes widened when she saw the stranger beside her husband. "Who is this?" she asked sharply. Mr. Tony explained everything. How I found him. How the hospital treated him. How he lost his memory. Mrs. Amaka wiped her hand and frowned. So you just brought a total stranger to live with us? Just then, their daughter Amanda, a beautiful and soft-hearted 22-year-old girl, stepped outside. Her eyes met the man's. He looked tired, lost, and somehow gentle. Amanda asked, "Do you remember your name?" The man shook his head slowly. "No, nothing comes to me." Amanda smiled sweetly. "Okay, if you don't mind, can we call you something? A name to make things easier." He nodded quietly. Amanda thought for a while. Then she said, "Let's call you David. You look like a David." Mr. Tony laughed. "That's a good name." Even the man smiled faintly. "David? I like it." From that moment, the billionaire with no memory became David. David stayed with them. Every morning, Mr. Tony took him to the river to fish. He taught him how to use the nets, how to paddle the canoe, how to check for signs of rain. David worked hard, quiet, gentle, grateful. Amanda started spending more time with him too. She showed him how to cook yam and fish, how to light the firewood stove. Sometimes, they laughed together. Other times, she would just watch him quietly, wondering who he really was. But Mrs. Tony was not smiling. At night, she whispered to her husband, "Are you sure about this man? We don't know where he's from. What if he's dangerous?" But Mr. Tony would say, "God sent him to us. I feel it in my bones." Mrs. Tony didn't argue much, but in her heart, she wasn't at peace. She watched every move David made. She didn't trust his silence. And even though Amanda was beginning to smile more because of David, her mother kept a close eye. Something about him still didn't sit right with her. But David, who used to be Richard, had no clue that a whole life, a family, and an empire were waiting for him in the city. He had no idea that his face was on newspapers, that his mother was praying for him every night, and that his cousin Maxwell was planning to take everything he owned. He only knew that a kind fisherman saved him. And now, his new name was David. Life in the fisherman's home was not easy. At first, things seemed calm. But as the days turned to weeks, Mrs. Tony's true feelings began to show. Every morning, she would shout from the backyard, "David! Wake up! Go fetch water! The pots are still dirty. You didn't cut firewood." David would quietly get up and do as she said. He never complained. But what hurt most was mealtime. While Mr. Tony and Amanda got a full plate of food, David's plate was always small, sometimes just a spoon of rice and one tiny piece of fish. "Ah, Mama," Amanda would whisper, "why is his portion always small?" Mrs. Tony would snap, "Is he my child? Is food now falling from the sky? We barely have enough, and now we're feeding a stranger." David heard every word, but he never said anything. He would just smile faintly and say, "Thank you, Ma. I'm okay." One evening, as they sat under the moonlight to eat, Amanda noticed David barely touching his food. She quietly pushed part of hers toward him and whispered, "Please eat more. You've been working since morning." But David shook his head with a gentle smile. "No, Amanda. You need it more. I'm fine. Really." Amanda looked at him closely. His eyes looked tired, but there was strength in his silence. She admired that. Mrs. Tony, watching from the corner, frowned but said nothing. The next day, David followed Mr. Tony to the river as usual. They carried their nets and paddled into the deep, quiet part of the water. As they waited for fish, Mr. Tony looked at David for a long time, then said softly, "My wife, she's not always like this. Life has made her bitter. We used to be better off, but things changed. Now, we struggle for every meal." David nodded silently, listening. Mr. Tony continued, "I know she's been hard on you. I see it. And I'm sorry." David turned to him and said, "It's okay, sir. I understand. I'm grateful you even took me in." Mr. Tony smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Listen, son, you may not know where you came from, or who you really are, but from the moment I pulled you from that river, I knew your life had meaning. You're not just anybody." David's eyes glistened with emotion. Mr. Tony added gently, "I want you to know, I now see you as a son. So please, be patient with Amaka. Don't let her words enter your heart." David nodded slowly. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot to me." As the boat rocked gently on the water, the moon above them shined brighter, like it was listening too. David didn't remember his real father, his real name, or where he was from. But at that moment, he felt like he belonged. Even if just a little. Meanwhile, in the quiet corners of the home, as the days passed, something gentle began to grow between Amanda and David. It started with quiet glances, then small talks, then shared laughter over burnt yam or crooked fishing nets. Amanda would always find reasons to sit near David, and David would always wait for her to return from the stream before he ate. Sometimes, she would bring him a fresh mango and say, "You look tired today, eat something sweet." Sometimes, he would help wash her clothes without her asking, and she'd smile and say, "Thank you, David. You're not like other men." Their bond grew slowly, beautifully. But Mrs. Tony noticed everything. One afternoon, she watched from the window as Amanda and David sat under the mango tree, talking and laughing. Her eyes narrowed. She wiped her hand on her wrapper, came outside, and called sharply, "David! Come here." David stood up quickly and walked to her. She didn't smile. She looked at him from head to toe and said in a sharp voice, "Let me tell you something, and I want you to hear me well. Whatever charm you're using on my daughter, stop it now." David's eyes widened. "Ma? I don't understand." She stepped closer. "Oh, don't pretend. I see the way she looks at you. The way she smiles like she's lost her head. Let me warn you, it will not work. My daughter will never marry a poor man who doesn't even know his name or his people." David's heart sank. "I'm not trying to." "Keep quiet," she snapped. "You better stay away from her, or you'll see a side of me you won't like." She turned and stormed back into the house, leaving David standing in silence, with pain in his chest. That night, he couldn't sleep. Amanda noticed. She knocked on his small room door. "David? Are you okay?" He hesitated, then opened the door. She saw his eyes were red. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. David looked at her and whispered, "Your mother, she warned me to stay away from you." Amanda frowned. "She did what?" David sighed. "Maybe she's right. I don't know who I am. I don't even know if I have a family looking for me somewhere." Amanda stepped closer and held his hand. "I don't care about your past. All I know is who you are now, and that is enough for me." David's eyes filled with tears. But deep down, he knew this simple life was becoming complicated. And the girl who was giving him a reason to smile. Maybe the very reason his heart would break again. The days grew longer. and David's heart grew heavier. Even though he tried to stay away from Amanda, their bond only grew stronger. She saw the pain he carried, and he saw the kindness in her eyes. But the words of Mrs. Tony continued to echo in his head. "My daughter will never marry a poor man who doesn't even know his name." He knew she didn't see him as part of their family. But far away, in the city, his real family never stopped searching. Back at the Ademola mansion, Mrs. Ademola still placed a cup of tea by the window every morning. "I know you're not dead," she whispered. "A mother will feel it. And I feel it. Richard, my son, you're still alive." Mr. Ademola had spent millions hiring private investigators, offering rewards, and searching hospitals across the region. One day, an old friend of Mr. Tony, a fisherman from another village, came to the city to sell fish. As he walked by a big billboard, he paused. On the billboard was a picture of Richard Ademola, with bold letters. "Missing. Reward for any information." The fisherman's eyes widened. He took a closer look, then gasped. "This man looks exactly like the boy staying with Tony." He didn't waste time. He took a photo with his phone, went straight back to the riverside village, and showed the picture to Mr. Tony. Mr. Tony's eyes grew wide in shock. He stared at the photo, then looked at David, who was outside helping Amanda fix the water pot. "My God, it's him." Mr. Tony didn't say a word to David yet. He didn't want to scare him. That night, after dinner, he sat down with Amanda and showed her the photo. Amanda covered her mouth in shock. "So David is not just anyone. He's the Richard everyone is looking for." "Yes," Mr. Tony said softly. "He's a billionaire's son. Maybe even a billionaire himself." Amanda's heart beat fast. She didn't know how to feel. Excited? Scared? Happy? "What do we do?" she asked. "We have to tell his family." The next morning, Mr. Tony quietly called the number on the missing person flyer and asked to speak with Mr. Ademola. The moment he said, "I think I found your son," Mrs. Ademola fainted. They arranged a visit to the village immediately, with police escorts, family doctor, and reporters. When the cars drove into the village, everyone came out to watch. Who are these people? What's going on? And then, the car door opened. Mrs. Ademola stepped out, holding Richard's photo. She looked around. And there he was, David, walking from the back with a basket of firewood. The moment their eyes met, she dropped the picture and screamed, "My son! Richard!" David froze. Everything around him stopped. He felt dizzy. The name, Richard, hit something deep inside him. Memories began to flash. The car. The water. His mother's voice. His home. "Mama," he whispered. She ran to him and hugged him tightly. Mr. Ademola held his back with tears running down his cheeks. "Richard, my boy, you're alive." The villagers stood in shock. Amanda stood frozen, her eyes filled with tears. And Mrs. Tony? She stood at the door with her mouth wide open, speechless. The next day, doctors came to examine him. His memory was slowly returning. Names. Faces. His life. And for the first time, David realized, he wasn't just David, he was Richard Ademola. The billionaire who was lost, but now found. Back in the city. The return of Richard Ademola shook the country like a thunderstorm. The media called it the miracle of the river. Newspapers, TV stations, and blogs all shouted, billionaire found alive after mysterious disappearance. His parents threw a huge celebration. Friends visited daily. Business partners cried tears of joy. But one person did not celebrate. Maxwell, his cousin. He sat alone in his office, crushing the glass in his hand. "Everything was almost mine," he growled. "The companies, the power, the fame. And now this nobody comes back from nowhere like a ghost." He stared at Richard's photo on the news. He has to go. Forever. Meanwhile, Richard didn't forget who saved him. He brought Mr. Tony, his wife Amaka, and their daughter Amanda to the city. He surprised Mr. Tony with a beautiful mansion in a peaceful part of town. Fully furnished. Big compound. New car in the garage. "I can't take this," Mr. Tony said, shocked. Richard smiled. "You didn't leave me to die. You gave me a home when I was nobody. Now let me do this for you." He also gave him millions of naira to start any business he liked. Mrs. Tony, who once starved and shouted at him, couldn't hold back her tears. She knelt down crying. "I'm sorry, Richard. I treated you badly. I didn't know you were this good, please forgive me." Richard then gently held her up and said kindly, "I forgave you the moment you first gave me food. I don't bear grudges, Mama." She wept more. Amanda, watching from the side, smiled. Her heart was full. But the peace didn't last long. Maxwell had made his move. He contacted 2 deadly kidnappers from out of town. He paid them heavily. "Take him. Don't call me. Just do the job. And make sure he never comes back." A week later, the house was quiet. Richard had stayed back to read while Amanda went to the market with the driver. Mr. and Mrs. Ademola had gone to a friend's wedding anniversary. Richard stood by the balcony, enjoying the fresh air, when he heard the sound behind him. 2 masked men. Guns in hand. "Don't shout," one said. "Get in the car." They dragged him quickly through the back gate. No security was nearby. Everything happened in seconds. They pushed him into a black-tinted car. The engine roared. Just as they were about to drive off, Amanda's taxi turned into the street. From a distance, she saw 2 men dragging someone into a car. Her heart skipped. "That's Richard." She quickly pulled out her phone and, with shaky hands, snapped the car's plate number before it sped off. She screamed at the driver. "Turn around. We have to go back. Richard has been kidnapped." The driver panicked. Amanda started calling the police. Calling Richard's father. Calling the driver. Everyone. She couldn't stop shaking. "Please God, don't let anything happen to him." She looked at the photo of the car's number plate and held it tight to her chest like it was her last hope. Moments after the kidnapping, Amanda's hand shook as she held out her phone to the police officers. "Please," she begged, "this is the plate number. They took Richard. I saw it with my eyes. I took a photo." The head officer, a sharp and serious man, grabbed the phone. He zoomed in. "Well done, young lady. This is exactly what we need." Immediately, they sent the number into the national database. Within minutes, the car was tracked. It was heading toward the outskirts of the city, an abandoned warehouse road known for criminal hideouts. The police moved fast. Within an hour, a special team surrounded the area. The kidnappers, thinking they had escaped, were shocked when sirens surrounded them. "Drop your weapons." They were arrested on the spot. Inside the car, bruised but alive, was Richard, his hands tied, but his eyes burning with quiet strength. When he saw the police, he whispered with a hoarse voice, "Amanda. Amanda saved me again." At the police station, during interrogation, the kidnappers broke down. "It wasn't our plan," one of them cried. "We were paid. We were just doing what he told us." "Who paid you?" the officer asked. After a long silence, they spoke the name, Maxwell. The news hit the Ademola mansion like thunder. Mr. Ademola sat in silence. Mrs. Ademola wept again, but this time from shock. "I can't believe Maxwell, our own blood," she whispered. Within hours, Maxwell was arrested at his office. He was disgraced publicly. The man who almost stole an empire was taken away in handcuffs. Justice had spoken. Later that evening, back at the mansion, Richard stood before Amanda. His face was bruised but smiling. His parents were there. Mr. and Mrs. Tony too. Everyone was gathered. He looked into Amanda's eyes and said softly, "I was lost. I didn't know my name, my family, or my future. But even when I had nothing, you saw me. You helped me. You believed in me." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't just save my life, you gave me reason to live again." Then slowly, he went on one knee, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it. Inside was a shining diamond ring. Gasps filled the room. Amanda covered her mouth in shock. "Amanda Tony," Richard said gently, "will you marry me?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. She nodded quickly, unable to speak. Then finally whispered, "Yes, yes, I will." Cheers filled the room. Mrs. Tony cried again, but this time with joy. Mr. Tony hugged his daughter tightly. Mr. and Mrs. Ademola both stepped forward and hugged Amanda. "You didn't just save our son's life," Mrs. Ademola said, smiling through her tears. "You've now become our daughter." And as Richard slipped the ring on Amanda's finger, the man who was once lost in a river found love in the heart of the girl who never gave up on him. We have come to the end of this story. Which character touched your heart the most, and why? Have you ever helped someone without expecting anything in return? Share your story. Do you think Amanda's love for Richard would have changed if he never got his memory back? If you found this story interesting, tell me what you think about this story in the comment section, and please like and share. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories. See you on our next video.